Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Alzora. I'm delighted to be here this morning, and allow me to introduce you to the Director of Sales and Marketing for Alzora Golf Club. Darren, good morning. You're very welcome here.
Role reversal. I love it.
Absolutely.
I'm so glad you came.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me on a Wednesday morning. What else would I be doing?
Early start, wasn't it? 4:30.
I'm always up this time in the morning, Darren.
Was the hairdresser over? And
no, last night.
It looks like you've been in the gym for a week.
I haven't slept.
Haven't you?
I didn't. The hair was a mess otherwise.
What, nervous about the game or the chat?
No, just about meeting you again.
Mate, absolute gentleman of the game, on and off the course. Highly respected in the hotel industry. But mate, talk us through your background in South Africa.
Darren, thank you. Yeah, look, I'm a privileged hotelier who also happens to play golf, and I had the great privilege of running and hosting a great many events throughout South Africa, not only as a golfer but as a hotelier. Certainly, I was there for over 25 years, and some of the highlights would have been certainly the courses that I ran, but perhaps most importantly, in the most historic time in South Africa was during the transition and the change. I've met the celebrities throughout the world. I've ran some great properties and resorts, but when I had the privilege and honour of hosting President Mandela for 10 days, right, it was surreal. It was at a very, very historic time, a very transitional time, and at a period whereby things really could have gone one way or the other. And, he came to stay on my property, and, we use the word aura a little glibly, right? We throw it out there the whole time, whether it's players or people or professionals. This man had it. And you know why he had it? Because he pretended not to have it, right? He just was something special. And, he stayed with me for 10 days during the very, very pivotal historic talks, and for me it was a great pleasure to meet him on a number of occasions.
So at that time in your career, Ferghal, fair to say that would have been a highlight. I mean, that would have been the most
Darren, it was my first appointment as a general manager, right? I had an owner who, he allowed me to run the resort and run the property. The media attention, the security attention, the political attention was unprecedented for a first-time general manager. It really was. Even now, reflecting back on it, if I had to do it today, I would be nervous, never mind some 20 years ago. And thankfully it went off extremely well. And for me, when I met and I saw him, and I got to meet the incoming ANC government at the time, and I thought, our future's in good hands. And it was a very, very special time. And again, because I was Irish, I wasn't political. I was a hotelier. Yes. I was able to cross all divides, whether it was police forces, whether it was political, or whether it was the nationalist government at the time, or the ANC. I just got on with them great, which was fabulous.
Now, what about the golf courses down there, mate? There's, they're world class, aren't they? But some of them, they're in amongst the wildlife, aren't they?
Down I ran. Yeah? There's probably 10 top parkland courses in South Africa, and certainly in the top 5 would be a resort called Hans Morensky, right? In the northwest part of South Africa, right? Literally bordering the Kruger National Park. Now, we've had all have aspirations of going to visit wildlife game parks and seeing elephant, lions, leopards, cheetahs, wild dogs, and the wildlife, the big 5, right? The Kruger Park fence, sadly, or actually maybe not, right? The fence was broken, right? So I had the privilege of running this resort for 7 years, Darren, and I will tell you, right? And it's very hard for you to believe this, that I had to close the course on regular occasions for a cheetah kill on the 4th, for a rogue elephant on the 2nd, right? We had a herd of a hippopotamus living on the 17th, right? And especially during the drought conditions, they would come out and feed on the fairways, and we would have to close the course, right?
So with proximity, what are we talking? I mean,
Darren, from me to the Kruger Park fence on the 14th and 15th, it was 50 yards, right? I could show you photographs, and it became, because what happened then was we had all the impala, the zebra, the giraffe, right? And they became used to the golfers. The golfers recognized the importance of not intruding upon them, and they loved it, right? It was surreal. But the last 2 years we had a particular problem, and again, very hard to believe this, with lion. Because there was a pride of lion displaced in the Kruger Park, and they took up residence on the course, right? So, I mean, to stand here actually telling you this, that my biggest problem wasn't the irrigation, it wasn't the rounds of golf, wasn't the lack of revenue, right? It was the fact that where was the pride feeding last night?
It was about survival, getting through the 18 holes.
Yeah, for sure, right? So it was surreal. We had to change the format. Our juniors used to play on a Sunday afternoon. We had to stop that because kids playing on the back nine on a Sunday afternoon was it was a concern. Yeah.
A genuine concern about
for sure.
Survival.
A genuine concern. We had to capture and relocate some old males because they were living on the course. So look, I will never again pay any credence to any superintendent who moans and groans about the irrigation or the lack of funding or the machinery is too old or he hasn't got the right piece of equipment for this. Seriously, come run a resort in South Africa whereby the elephant and the lion are a problem.
And they got through the day, went home to the wife and South survived.
Yes, really, I got through today. Yeah.
Now, what about back home, mate, in your homeland? You won Hotelier of the Year in 2013, and in the same year you hosted the G8 Summit. I mean, that's huge.
Look, Darren, you know, I mean, very hard to stand here today and impart to you or even to share with you, right, what that was like. You know, I mean, the build-up was very secretive. I wasn't even aware as to what it was, you know, and I'm having all these open-ended discussions about this very important event, and I had no idea what it was, right? Eventually,
other than the most important person in the world or most influential man in the world is going to be there.
No, didn't know. Didn't know. I am being briefed from Downing Street. I have the guys from the Met. I have the top guys and the Northern Irish Police Force all talking to me, and I have no idea what it is, right? So eventually I get called to Belfast for this very important meeting, and I'm thinking I'm really out of my depth here, right? Now I get in and I get called aside to say, look, Ferghal, it's the G8, right?
That's when you found out.
Yeah, but Darren, shall I tell you one of the funny things?
Yeah.
The first thing I had to go out and I had to Google G8 because I wasn't quite sure who the G8 countries were.
You thought it was a ping driver or
Well,
something, yeah.
I didn't. I had to go check, you know, right? So then, of course, when I checked and I started looking at the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, the President of the United States, the President of France, right, the President of Japan, the President or the Prime Minister of Canada, right, the Prime Minister of Italy, I think, oh my God.
They may have been as equally as nervous as meeting you.
Well, they hadn't met me yet, so that was the difficulty, you know. So, Darren, I got to tell you, it was surreal, right? The build-up, the lead-up, and then, of course, you know, President Obama being a keen golfer, right? You know, the venue was a place called Lough Erne Resort, right? Again, one of the top 3 parkland courses on the island of Ireland, right? A fabulous track. And, you know, I knew, right, because we all know President Obama loves golf, right? And I knew that he'd be keen, once he knew where the venue was, that he would be
get the sticks out.
Absolutely.
Didn't Tiger leave some sticks for him?
Well, as we all know, President Obama, he's a lefty,
Yep.
right? You know, and yes, Tiger had a special set of clubs commissioned for him, right? So of course, President Obama's coming over, and I was, you know, sharing with you earlier. You know, we all look at a par 5, right? We think it's 450 yards up the hill, down the hill, water on the left, whatever the case is.
Bunkers, yeah.
When I was looking at the par 5, my whole thought was, how many Black Hawk helicopters can I land on this fairway?
Exactly right.
Right?
Yeah.
Because the whole run-up was obviously security was massive, right? And we know the objective, particularly as Prime Minister Cameron and for President Obama, was to land them as close as possible to the resort, right? So one day I got a call from I worked very closely with the police and particularly the Secret Service. I got a call that said, Ferghal, where are you? I said, look, I'm in the hotel. He said, come on, be outside the front door in 10 seconds. And I was, so out we went to the course. I thought, what's happening? Standing on the 14th, par 5 down the hill, index 2, tough hole. And all of a sudden you hear this sound. And I look up down and there's a line, and you see this on the movies, there's 5 Black Hawks, right, swooping down to land from 200 yards out, 180 yards out. Oh, it was surreal, right?
Hitting in here.
Absolutely, unbelievable. And I couldn't believe it. I mean, these guys are so good. 5 Black Hawks on the 14th, down, right? So obviously then on the day I thought, oof, they didn't land, but about 150 yards off from the green, 2 spaces were left. And I thought to myself, sure enough, that's where Marine Force 2 and Marine Force 1 are going to land.
The main man.
Yeah, and on the morning of the G8, you know, I knew exactly when he was arriving. I was privy to a great deal of information, and out you go. And there is a ring of steel around him, and I'm there in the epicenter.
In amongst it.
Yeah, absolutely in the epicenter. And you look up on the 5 Black Hawks now. This is now real life time. They all arrive down in the land, and then sure enough, Marine Force 2, right? You see it, and then comes Marine Force 1.
Hard pumping.
Oh yeah. Seriously, you can't imagine, right?
Once in a lifetime.
Yeah,
really?
I can guarantee you. I would think there's no course in the world that had 5 Black Hawks and two Marine Force 1 and Marine Force 2 there. Now, one of the things that I didn't know, and I should have known, but I didn't know, is that wherever President Obama travels, a full-dress Marine always travels with him in Marine Force 2.
Right.
I did not know this, right? And as Marine Force 2 landed, the full-dress Marine gets out, walks across 100 yards from my 14 pin, right? And I'm looking, it's surreal, right? Opens the door, and out gets President Obama.
On your
right?
home turf.
Yeah, right there. Now, let me tell you what I thought was, I'd given a lot of thought as to how I would greet him. Because everybody would have said, welcome to Ireland, Kate Mila Fáilte, and all that went with it, but I knew he was a golfer.
What did you come out with?
Well, let me tell you, I had been told to take out all the pins, right? Because they didn't really want any photographs with a golf pin in the background. But in this hole, I left the pin in, right? And sure enough, down he gets out of the Marine Force 1, right? And the first thing that he does, right, he goes, right, no word of a lie. First thing that he does, right. So I walked over to him, right, and I'm the only one there, right. And I walked over and I said to him, Mr. President, it's a soft wedge, sir.
Not welcome to Ireland.
No,
it's a soft wedge.
It's a soft wedge, sir.
And he
that
took
was
it on board.
2 minutes later, we're still chatting about golf. Whereas if that had been a Welcome to Ireland or Cade Mila Forge, it would have been over and gone.
Formalities.
We're talking golf. We're talking Rory McIlroy. We're talking the condition of the course. He loved it.
He loves the game.
He loves the game. He loved the course. He does, right? And I'll tell you, he went back then to the lodge. We got him settled in and everything like that. And of course, one of the funny stories, which very few people know, is that, as we know, as I just said, he's a very keen golfer, right? So he takes out his golf shoes and he says to one of his top aides, "Where are the clubs?" And he said, "Mr. President, no, the clubs they're stateside, sir."
Oh, they're back.
And he's holding up the two shoes.
He wants to play.
He wants to squeeze a few holes in. He's holding up the shoes, which he had packed personally, and the clubs are stateside. So, look, it was
what an unbelievable
yeah. Look, I mean,
experience
very
for
lucky, right? It's that was the highlight certainly. But President Mandela, and also the courses that I've run. I mean, I'm not
back to the GA. David
Yes.
Cameron said it was the best one that had ever been run.
Yeah,
I mean,
he
that's
did.
Huge feather in your cap for you.
Look, I was very privileged that I got to meet Prime Minister Cameron on many occasions, right? Not least in the lead up, and indeed the night he was leaving, right? Again, because I knew the head of his security very well, I was down, only three of us down to say goodbye to him privately at the lodge before he left. And he walked up to me, he said, "Ferghal, I don't have the words." And I was crying down, right? Let nobody kid you.
No, of course.
Yeah, I was beyond tired, right? And he walked up, and my wife was there, and he was there, and one of his top aides was there, and he said, "I don't have the words." He said,
What a statement.
Yeah, he was,
huge.
and even standing here now, I'm getting goosebumps because for me to have delivered that with my team, I didn't deliver it, we delivered it, but for him to say that to me, right, I was crying, I really was. And it was great because my wife was there, she heard him say that, and then we got invited to Downing Street the next week as his personal guest to thank us. Yeah, so look, as a hotelier and as a golfer, they're the highs, the absolute highs, and
sure.
to run probably the biggest event in the world that year, right, in the world that year, on a golf course, right, it was unbelievable.
Well, I promise you it won't get emotional today. I won't make you cry. Well, maybe our golf might make you cry, but...
my golf will make you cry, I can assure you.
Look, we're going to have a few laughs out of you.
Perfect,
yeah,
right,
it's great to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
You're the General Manager of Ajman Palace, which we're going to talk about a little bit later.
Fabulous.
But the support that we've received from your property has been nothing short of phenomenal, so we appreciate that. But right now we're going to play holes 1, 2 and 3.
Fabulous.
We're starting with a par 5. No
Black Hawks?
No Black Hawks, no. Couldn't
I
promise
wasn't
that.
looking up yet.
May play well.
Thank you
Let's
so much.
enjoy it.
All right,
Let's
thank
enjoy
you.
it.
Thanks.